Welcome back to the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog. It's great to be back with you. This is my midweek show for week 12. That is right. Week 12 is already upon us. This season has rushed by like the blink of an eye, as they always do each and every year. I'm coming to you live once again from the man cave. I'm your host, Blair Parks. Just got recently back from our family vacation down in Disneyland, back from the most magical and happy place on earth. It's great to be back with you and being back home in Missouri. But for all of you who are coming back, who have been previous viewers, or those of you this is your first time joining me, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here. I thank you as always for your support, your viewership, your attention, and as always, I would appreciate any likes, shares, subscribes, any comments. Feel free to let me know how I'm doing, or if there is a subject or topic you would like me to share on air with you, the Black and Gold family. I'd be more than happy to do that. And just to give you a little bit of quick insight to why it's called the Black and Gold vlog. Here on this channel, we honor, discuss, and celebrate all things college football, but with a special emphasis on the black and gold squads of the Missouri Tigers and the Iowa Hawkeyes. And I've got an awesome episode lined up for you this week. I've got 4 segments, 4 topics to present and discuss. As usual, my midweek shows, I'm going to give you any updated storylines and headlines that have matriculated or arisen during the last week and a half, 2 weeks. Then I am going to give you my Heisman Trophy update, who I see as being the finalists as of right now, entering a pivotal week 12, who my favorite is at this time as well. Then I am going to share with you the updated college football playoff rankings. They were unveiled last night for us, give you a little bit of insight on that and thoughts and analysis that I have. And just to give you fair warning, you might see an epic rant of epic proportions. Have a lot to say and discuss with you about these updated and current playoff rankings. And then I am going to give you my updated team power rankings as far as how I see the teams on the field, but also take into effect their ranking, their records, who they've played, who they've lost to, and the eye test. And I love doing that each and every week for you, the Black and Gold family. So let's get the shares out there, spread the word, spread the news. Let's get every Black and Gold fan from coast to coast involved, and every college football fan in between. So let's move right into it. Didn't have a Week 11 review show this week. Just didn't have enough time getting, back to my usual schedule. But it was an excellent Week 11. Both the Black and Gold squads. Hasn't happened much this season, but both of them were in action and both got big-time victories. Missouri definitely played their best game of the year. Only allowed 58 rushing yards to South Carolina, a team that rushed for almost 280 yards the week before against Florida. Absolutely shut them down. Hands down, Missouri's best game of the year, most complete game. And Iowa in the rivalry game, the Floyd of Rosedale game against Minnesota, was able to bring the bacon back home and keep it in Iowa City for yet another year. So great Week 11 we had. But as far as Week 12, let's dive into my first topic and segment right now. Let's start off with my updated storylines and headlines across the college football landscape. As what's been happening throughout this season, we've had the weekly updates about conference expansion and realignment. Have a little bit to share with you on that front first. A couple weeks ago, it was reported, and I shared this with you, that potentially Middle Tennessee State University and Western Kentucky were going to be invited to join the MAC conference, since Conference USA seems to be disbanding and disappearing right before our very eyes. But Late last week, it was reported that Middle Tennessee State has declined to join the MAC. They're going to be staying with Conference USA at this time, for now anyway. In response to that, the MAC did kind of change their tune following this news and announced that it will not be expanding at this time. So also Western Kentucky will be staying with Conference USA for now. And the reasons why they stayed could be not just be allegiance or geographic location, but it was reported, and it's breaking at it was middle of last week, that Conference USA is going to add 2 FBS independents, those being New Mexico State and Liberty, and they are going to add FCS programs Jacksonville State and Sam Houston State. So the conference is looking to add, to replace some of the teams that have been taken away from them by the Sun Belt Conference. So a lot going on there. So Conference USA, it appears, is actually not only treading water, but looks like they may survive this current, most recent round of expansion and realignment. So stay tuned for further developments out of Conference USA. And also the MAC. The MAC, I could see them expanding at some point in the future, but like I just said, they're not looking to do so right now. So that is the updated conference expansion and realignment news I have to share with you. And each and every week, we have updated news about the coaching carousel that continues to spin out of control. It is completely off the rails, coming to a town near you. Please hide the women and children. We don't know who's going to survive at the end of the season and throughout the off season with the coaching carousel. But this is what happened. Updated from last time I shared this with you, we now can add 2 more coaching vacancies at the Power 5 level. Recently, Washington fired second-year coach Jimmy Lake, and Virginia Tech, something that I did forecast during my crystal ball predictions episode early this season, just so you know. Virginia Tech has also parted ways with their head coach Justin Fuente, and both of those are effective immediately. They are out. So now we have 2 more jobs at the Power 5 level, and now it comes down to 6. We would have had 7, but Baylor has named their new head coach. That happens to be, what's his name? Joey McGuire is the new head coach at Texas Tech. Don't know much about him. He comes from Baylor as an assistant. I believe he's an assistant head coach. So there is 1 Power 5 program that has filled its vacancy, but we now have 6 remaining, and that is a lot. And this really continues a troubling trend. It's a very troubling trend to me. It makes me ponder and ask the question, how the hell did we get here? That with these 2 gentlemen being fired within the last week and a half, we now have 12 coaching changes throughout all of college football, and we're not even to the end of this season. This includes both Power and non-Power 5 teams. 12 coaching changes already, and we still have 2 weeks to go in the regular season. It's really astronomical to see that this is where we are, the new attitude of, hey, what have you done for me lately? And the best example of that is, if you take away the potential off the field issues that Coach Ed Orgeron was having at LSU, go Tigers, that he's not even 2 calendar years removed from winning a national title at LSU. And as you know from, my insight and previous episodes, he will not be the coach at the end of the season at LSU, currently in his farewell tour. So that's really the new attitude, really showing that there is so much money involved in college football. It's what have you done for me lately, not what have you done for me during your time here. Very troubling trend. And I really hope that this ends, because it is disturbing. Eventually we might get to the point to where you may not have enough viable or legitimate coaches to fill these vacancies. I mean, how good will the candidates be if you have X amount, way too many available openings? I mean, what's going to happen? Really troubling. Next set of news I want to share with you is some updated news on potential playoff expansion. And this has gone very quiet. Before the season kicked off, it was reported, and it was actually verified that they were potentially looking to expand to 12 teams. And then we got the news about the SEC adding Texas and Oklahoma. Quickly, the alliance formed between the commissioners of the ACC, the Big Ten, and the Pac-12 conferences, kind of in a way to check the power grab potentially of the SEC. So then they were debating about, well, do we really need to expand? Should we keep it at 4? Should we maybe only expand to 8 or 12? It was reported early this week that right now, expanding to 8 teams actually looks like that might be more preferred than expanding to the 12 teams that was reported prior to the kickoff of the season. So it definitely looks like they are going to be expanding the playoff, which, you know me, I am an advocate for that. I am an expansionist. I am one of the main party members of the expansionist party. I've wanted it for a long time, but it looks like it's going to be to 8, not 12, but we'll take it. It is a step in the right direction. So that's where we are with potential playoff expansion. This has not yet been confirmed or verified, but it has been leaked and reported. So we'll see what that plays out for officially on the playoff expansion side. Next thing I want to share with you is some updates on the coaching hot seat, because wow, within the last 2 or 3 weeks, there are a lot of seats that have really heated up, and some of them completely out of nowhere. There's 2 that I did not see happening at all during the season, but the way it's played out, and with the new attitude of what have you done for me lately, a lot of these ADs, chancellors, presidents, fan bases, they don't necessarily believe in much loyalty these days. So there are 2 coaches that seats have absolutely skyrocketed with a hot temperature. Let me go ahead and share some news with you on this front. Kind of an update on Scott Frost. He's not one of the 2. I mean, he has absolutely been on the hot seat, since day 1 when this season kicked off. I did not expect that he would be retained at the end of the season. Currently, the Nebraska sits at 3-7, so they will not be bowl eligible. They have 2 games remaining, but it was reported early last week that Nebraska will be retaining Coach Scott Frost. They have worked out a restructured contract, so he will be staying at Nebraska for the time being. He's going to get a little bit of a haircut as far as his salary, but the years was not disclosed. It could be, I expected a very short leash, especially with the new AD there at Nebraska. And that's a big time shock to me. I mean, after all, as a reminder, his record now, and he hasn't even completed his 4th season. He's in the midst of his 4th season. His record as the coach of Nebraska is 15-27 and a lonely 10-23 in Big Ten play. But yeah, they're going to keep him. Big time shock there. But in a related story to this, and this is the thing that is really awful. Optically, it is absolutely awful. It stinks. It leaves a sour taste in my mouth, sour smell in my nose, is even though Nebraska is retaining Coach Scott Frost, during that week when this contract was worked out, he did, effective immediately, fire four offensive coaches from his staff, including the offensive coordinator, I believe the offensive line coach, quarterbacks coach, wide receivers coach. So basically, it looks optically like Scott Frost, saved his own skin by saying, okay, please, keep me, I'll take a reduction in pay, and also to keep me on board, I'll fire the 4 coaches that I hired. It absolutely stinks. It looks awful. Any way you slice it, it's just him basically saving his own neck. And from this, I hope Nebraska doesn't win another game. I am very perturbed by this, that the lack of loyalty and how horrible it looks for Coach Scott Frost. Nebraska fans, you should be up in arms with that. But I think from what I've read via message boards and other fans that they're happy with this. But it's awful. It is absolutely awful. I hope they go winless for a very long time, even though on Black Friday next week in Week 13, they could very easily defeat my Iowa Hawkeyes in Lincoln. Stay tuned next week to see how I see that game turning out. But it's an awful look for Scott Frost. I'm just trying to keep myself on track, in my lane, because there's a lot I want to say about this. It stinks. It's just for the entire program to where, okay, whatever I need to do to survive, it's that cutthroat right now, and it's pathetic, quite frankly. That's just my opinion. If you agree, disagree, let me know, comment, just keep it adult-like, keep it clean. I'd love to share your comments, your thoughts on air. Now to the 2 coaches that have emerged on the hot seat. The first is Dan Mullen at Florida. And if you watched last week's show when I did one episode from Disney World, driving through Florida and being among the Floridians, they are not happy with Dan Mullen there at Florida, and they should not be. I mean, they did break their 3-game losing streak over the weekend by defeating FCS program Sanford. Yeah, not Stanford, Sanford, to the score of 70-52. They gave up 52 points to Sanford. This team, there's problems. Right now they sit at 5-5. Maybe they don't get themselves bowl eligible. They have a big time game this weekend. They come to Missouri to take on Missouri, and then they have their in-state rival Florida State. I don't know if bowl eligibility is going to be reached. It's a huge game this weekend for Missouri because they also sit 5-5. So the winner of this game gets to that coveted 6th win to get a bowl game, to get that 13th game. But tune in tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to be posting my Week 12 preview show. I'll break down this game more in depth tomorrow. But out of nowhere, he's on the hot seat. And quite frankly, I don't think he should be. I mean, this is the team that went to the SEC title game last year. They did go to a New Year's Six bowl game, but got absolutely embarrassed by Oklahoma, primarily because their players opted out to go to the NFL. So I can't necessarily blame what happened, the outcome of the game, on Coach Dan Mullen. But I'm calling this right now, if they go 5-7, he is absolutely going to be fired. I think if they go 6-6, get to a bowl game but lose, I could absolutely see Dan Mullen moving on to the NFL. When the last couple of years, he has commented about potentially getting to the NFL, and I think he is someone who makes just a better OC and offensive coordinator. The guy can absolutely call a game. He is gifted with the X and O's, but I don't know if he has the Jimmies and Joes to execute his game plans. And that is something that every coach must have, that balance of how do I call a game, the X's and O's, with the personnel and the players to run that plan, the Jimmies and Joes. So we'll find out in a couple of weeks here what the future is for Dan Mullen down there in Gainesville. I mean, I did not see this one coming at all. Now, the next one is Coach Steve Sarkisian at Texas. Wow, I absolutely am dumbfounded by this. After their loss over the weekend to lonely Kansas, that's right, Kansas at home, in overtime, 57-56, they now have lost 5 straight games in Austin, and they sit at 4-6 is their overall record. They have 2 tough games left. They go to West Virginia and then play Kansas State. So them getting to 6 wins, I don't see it happening. I could see them winning one of those 2 games, but they are not going to get to postseason play. And right now, even this is Coach Sarkisian's first year, and the reports are coming out, fire him. We screwed up. We don't need this, especially moving to the SEC in the near future. We need to get him out. He's done. He's on the hot seat. This is absolutely ludicrous. It makes, once again, it adds to the awful trend of what have you done for me lately. This was their hire, okay? And Texas, I'm going to just go on a little bit of a mini rant here because I'm a big boy and I'll tell you exactly when something's wrong with Iowa. And trust me, in a little bit here, I'm going to give it to the Iowa AD, Gary Barta, who is the commissioner of the playoff committee. So stand by on that. But right now, the arrogance of the Texas program continues to grow. This is maybe what you deserve. When you turn back the clock a decade ago, when you wanted your own network, when you were in the Big 12, you basically alienated so many teams because you flexed your power. And granted, I have no problem with the Texas fans or the Texas brand, but the program and the arrogance that they continue to think that they're entitled to, once again, the age of entitlement, this has got to stop. When back then you wanted, more your own network, it alienated teams to that eventually they left you. Nebraska left for the Big Ten, Colorado left for the Pac-12, Missouri and Texas A&M left for the SEC because they were absolutely tired of Texas always getting their way and thinking that they could. And now here we are, 2021, you're going to the SEC, you potentially put the Big 12 in jeopardy to be broken down again, but they've answered the bell by adding a few teams to fill the void. You'll be leaving when you leave. So once again, you want more, you want the spotlight. This is maybe what you deserve. I think the cosmos have lined up. I believe in the football gods. There is just and justice to what they give us as fans, as programs. This is what you deserve. You continue to want and think that you're entitled to this and that and this and that all over the place, anytime, at anyone's expense. Sit there and take your medicine. This man should not be fired. He was your big-time name hire, which, if you recall, I shared with you pre-season. I was very skeptical of this hire. To me, this was Tom Herman 2.0. When, yes, he's an offensive guru, but offense was not your problem during Tom Herman. You averaged 40 points a game last year under Tom Herman. You bring in an offensive guru, you don't fix your defense, but more importantly, you don't fix your culture issues. That is what's going on at Texas, is their culture is broken ever since the confetti fell at the national title game in the Rose Bowl when Vince Young scrambled into the end zone to beat USC. Texas has been a broken program. Their culture must be fixed first before they can right the ship. And you want to go to the SEC. And right now, you're not going to compete at a high level in the Southeast Conference. And that's just point blank the truth. Let me know you agree, disagree. Maybe I'm right on point. Maybe I'm way off point. That's just how I see it. You deserve this. So just sit there and take it like a man, or you can bend over and take it any way that you see. Okay? That's it. Moving on. Next little bit of headline and storyline I want to, my blood pressure's up a little bit, is, I got to say this too, just being in Florida, it made me then realize the status of the great state of Florida. Because right now, there ain't no sunshine in the Sunshine State. You look at the big three. In talent-rich Florida, all of the talent, athleticism, speed, power strength of football players in Florida, all of these legitimate high school academies, these powerhouses, look at where their three teams are at the Power 5 level. Florida, as I mentioned, is sitting there 5-5. Miami, the U, 5-5 as well. And Florida State sits at 4-6. I mean, think about those three programs. The history, the numerous national titles among all of them, the Heisman Trophy winners. And there they are average at best, if not pushing mediocre. I believe only one, maybe two of them is going to get to bowl eligibility. I mean, what is going on in Florida? Is it a lack of recruiting, or is the best recruiting talent leaving the state? Is it coaching? Is it development of those players? Scheduling? Just bad luck? I don't know. But what is going on in Florida? I mean, it's really something that is hard for me to digest or to accept. When growing up, that was the way it is. Always at least one of those three teams would be in the national title hunt every single year, if not both. And here they are. I mean, 500 and one is below 500 with 2 weeks to go in the regular season. Just wow. Really, really surprising. But that would be a good case study at the end of the season with what is really happening there in the Gator State. But anyway, we'll see. Feel free to give me your insight, your thoughts. Feel free, appreciate those likes, those shares, those subscriptions. Now, my next segment is I want to update you on where I see the Heisman Trophy race at currently heading into Week 12. And right now I think this is a 4-horse race, but I think potentially after this weekend it could drop to 3. Right now, the 4 individuals who I think should be given an invitation to New York for the trophy, for the hardware, is Michigan State University running back Kenneth Walker III, who right now I believe he is my favorite to win. But like I said, he could totally drop off this list depending on how it goes this week. They have the big matchup within the Big Ten East against Ohio State. As of right now, he is my favorite to win. The next up, I think, would be the Ole Miss quarterback, Matt Corral. And these two are my favorite because I believe they mean the most to their teams, and I think they are the best players. When they play on good teams, but they are head and shoulders above everybody else, being the best player on their respective teams. Third is Alabama quarterback Bryce Young. And fourth would be the Ohio State quarterback, C.J. Stroud. And those guys are legit. They have good numbers. But look at the talent that surround them compared to Michigan State and Ole Miss. That's why I think those first two would be my favorites to win. Now, I'm also going to give some love this week. Now, if it was up to me, I would also, it should be a rule to where you have to invite one player from the non-Power 5 ranks because they are deserving. The individuals, running backs, quarterbacks, defenders, some of them will always, each and every year, put up better numbers than their counterparts who get the invitation. I think it should be mandatory. So I'm going to tell you right now who I believe the best player at the non-Power 5 level is, and this person should absolutely get an invitation to NYC. And this year, I've shared a lot of quarterbacks with you. Carson Strong at Nevada, Jake Haener at Fresno State, Sincere McCormick, the running back at UTSA, all are stud players, are putting up great stats, great numbers. Teams are having a great amount of success. But the player that I believe is hands down the best player at the non-Power 5 level is the quarterback from Western Kentucky, Bailey Zappi, and what a great name as well. Bailey Zappi, his stats are off the chart. They blow away everybody else's. Let me share with you Bailey Zappi's stats. On the season, he has thrown for 4,170 yards. He has thrown for 42 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. to the tune of a 71% completion percentage. And he still has 2 games to go with the bowl game. They've already got their 6th win. Bailey Zappi should absolutely get some Heisman love, get him to New York City. Those numbers, absolutely just insane. I mean, the guy's a freak. Just watch him. And it's a really good story about Bailey Zappi. I mean, coming out of high school, he was labeled as, hey, good player. You know, definitely has some talent, but just too damn small to play at the Division I level. Only got 1 offer from Houston Baptist, who last year they took Texas Tech in week 1 to the wire. I believe it was 52-48. He was the starting quarterback at Houston Baptist. The Western Kentucky head coach absolutely fell in love with him and saw the numbers he was putting up. So what did he do? He hired the offensive coordinator at Houston Baptist, and he was hoping he would bring Bailey Zappi with him to Western Kentucky, and he did. And now it's paying dividends for everybody. So what a great story for Bailey Zappi as well, the rise of the one and only Bailey Zappi. So well done, keep it up. Hands down, my Heisman winner at the non-Power 5 level. So that is my updated Heisman watch. Next segment is I am going to now share with you the updated college football playoff rankings as unveiled last night. And I do have a lot to say about this. But before I do that, let me go ahead and give them to you, starting for number 25. So this week's rankings going into week 12 at number 25 is Mississippi State. 24 is Houston, making their initial appearance in the rankings. Number 23 is Utah. 22 is UTSA, one of only 3 remaining undefeated teams at the FBS Division I level. Well done, Roadrunners. Number 21, Arkansas. Number 20, NC State. Number 19 is San Diego State, the Aztecs. Number 18 is Pitt. Up a few spots. Number 17 are Iowa Hawkeyes. 16 is Texas A&M. 15 is Wisconsin. 14, BYU, the Cougars. 13 is Oklahoma, dropped from number 8 after their loss over the weekend at Baylor. Number 12 is Ole Miss. Number 11 is the Baylor Bears. Now the top 10. At the 10th spot is Wake Forest. Big win for them over the weekend against NC State. Number 9 is Oklahoma State. The Cowboys sit there with just 1 loss. Number 8 is Notre Dame. They move up 1 spot, I believe. Number 7 is Michigan State. Number 6 is Michigan. Number 5 is Cincinnati. They remain in the 5 hole. Number 4 is Ohio State. Number 3 is the Oregon Ducks. Number 2 is Alabama, and number 1 is Georgia. So not a lot of movement in the top 10, but that's really where the problem is for me. But before I do, let me just go ahead and give you some of my initial thoughts and analysis. Having Michigan ahead of Michigan State for the 2nd week in a row is absolutely preposterous. It's asinine, and I'm going to explain to you why here in a little bit. Just to give you the summary, that yes, they're 6 and 7. They're separated by 1 spot. But Michigan and Michigan State have basically the same resume. They have the same record. But yet Michigan State beat them head-to-head. But yet they're going to be ranked behind Michigan. It makes absolutely no sense to where right now the committee absolutely is honoring the head-to-head of Oregon over Ohio State, and that's reflective. Oregon sits 3, Ohio State sits 4, but they are not honoring the head-to-head of Michigan State over Michigan because it's flip-flopped, with Michigan being ahead of them. And I'm going to share with you why I believe that is at the end of this segment, and also I'm going to share with you the exact words of the playoff committee commissioner, the Iowa AD, Gary Barta, who is an absolute boob already. This only adds to his tale of why he is an awful AD in the first place. I'm going to share with you what exactly his exact words for why they justify doing this, the committee. So just stay tuned for that. That might be my epic rant. Next, right now, it's very clear, and I shared this last week on last week's episode, that Alabama, all they need to do is reach the SEC title game 12-0, and they are going to be in the playoff, win or lose against Georgia. They're in. I absolutely still believe that, but if they win, they absolutely should get in. There's no doubt about that. But the committee having them still at number 2, they're a shoo-in. You win your next 2 games, you're going to be a playoff participant. You're going to grab a bid. It's that simple. Don't count out the Big 12. I mean, right now, the highest-ranked Big 12 team is number 9 Oklahoma State after Oklahoma's loss. But they're going to have every opportunity to still potentially steal a bid. Oklahoma State, if they win out and beat Oklahoma twice, so that means they would beat them in the regular season in the Bedlam game. Ooh, I got a little, excuse me, bless me there, a little sneeze. But then they would beat them in the rematch and win the Big 12 title. They would sit there at 12-1. And if other teams continue to falter or lose, they absolutely could get a playoff bid. And so could Oklahoma. If they went out, beat Iowa State, a tough game they've got this week, beat Oklahoma State, and then beat them again, or maybe Baylor, then they still could rise up there and get a playoff bid. I think Baylor, with 2 losses already, I think it'd be difficult for them. But I still think the Big 12 is really in the race for a playoff bid. I really think that, especially if things stay status quo that they have this season with chaos each and every week, top 10 teams losing left and right. So still keep an eye on the Big 12 teams. They still could get themselves in the playoff. And right there, Notre Dame at number 8. They are still lurking and very much alive for a playoff bid. I don't see them hopping Cincinnati if Cincinnati wins out due to the head-to-head, and I'm glad. There's another example. The committee is giving Cincinnati the head-to-head win over Notre Dame, just like they are Oregon over Ohio State, but not Michigan State over Michigan. Go figure. But I don't see them hopping Cincinnati unless Cincinnati loses. But still, if that happens and other teams lose ahead of them, Notre Dame could still go, they still could go ahead and steal a playoff bid. They are absolutely in the mix right now if they win out. Not having a 13th game, a conference title game, could hurt them, but it could help them if teams ahead of them lose. So stay tuned for that. And the last thing I want to say is Cincinnati, before I go on my potential epic rant, is Cincinnati this week again sits in the 5 hole. And I actually am feeling a little bit better about this. I believed after the first rankings that were unveiled 2 weeks ago, this is week 3, that they had absolutely no shot to get in the playoff no matter what they did. But I actually think now they have a path to get there. Maybe not a clear path. There is some debris on that path. There's a couple downed trees, maybe an old Buick on the side of the road, or a broken down Ford halfway on the path. There's a little bit of hurdles for them to get over, but it's actually looking very good. If Oregon is to trip up, now do I see them beating Utah twice? I don't know. Could happen, but I don't see it. And those teams actually play this week. Huge game. Spoiler alert, that'll be my spotlight game of the week when Oregon travels to Utah. So if Oregon was to lose another game and Cincinnati wins out, I don't see how you take a 2-loss Power 5 team, even though maybe they win the Pac-12 title, over an undefeated Cincinnati squad. I don't see how you do that. You just can't. And also, if Alabama is to trip up, or let's say they get absolutely throttled and embarrassed in the SEC title game, maybe they lose by 24 points or more to Georgia, that's their second loss. I think then the committee would have to put Cincinnati in over Alabama, potentially. Or at least it'd be Alabama could still be in, but not at the expense of an undefeated Cincinnati squad. So I think their path to getting there is fairly good right now, especially teams behind them. Michigan State takes on Ohio State this week. Huge game. I don't know if Michigan State's going to have the horses to pull the huge upset. Stay tuned tomorrow to see how I pick this game. So that would be a loss. So they would fall further behind Cincinnati. And then if Ohio State runs the table, beats Michigan in the game, which is going to be great to see potentially that game matter again for the Big Ten East crown to get to Indianapolis. How great would that be? Then Michigan would drop behind Cincinnati. So there is a good path for them now to get there. So we'll have to hope and pray. I definitely think they will be there, but just a couple more things have to go their way. But they have a good opportunity. But first and foremost, they got to take care of business. You cannot lose, and you must look good, get those style points. So now let me break down what I need to say about the committee and what Gary Barta, his justification for putting Michigan ahead of Michigan State. He basically said during the interview that, put the game aside. Even though they played head-to-head 3 weeks ago, and we all know who won, being Michigan State, Sparty took care of business. But if you look at statistically, on paper, Michigan is better offensively and defensively, so that's why we put them ahead of Michigan State. What the hell is that? You're basically saying that the regular season, the games don't matter. That's what you're saying. And you're all over the place. You're being complete hypocrites because you're not honoring the head-to-head between those two teams like you are others. And I pointed those out. It makes absolutely no sense to say, don't even worry about watching the games anymore. They don't really matter. All they are looking for is, once again, it comes down to money, prestige, and brand. All they are doing, they are setting up to where even if Michigan takes care of Maryland this week, which they probably should at home, let's say they lose respectfully to Ohio State in the game, they're basically setting up Michigan to then be the next highest ranked Big Ten team to get a Rose Bowl bid. And we all know the Michigan brand is big. I mean, they are the winningest program in history of college football, but they've been down for so many years. That is what they're doing. It comes down to brand on the jersey and on the helmet. And I'm a voter like you are. If this happened, at the political arena, we'd be calling for a recount, a vote of no confidence. I want every one of these 13 experts to be out. I'm calling for a vote of no confidence, like in Chancellor Valorum in episode 1 of Star Wars. I want Gary Barta out and these committee members. This is awful. You're saying none of this matters. We're going off of our perception once again. And hey, Michigan's got to be better than Michigan State because they're Michigan. Like Alabama's got to be better than Cincinnati or Oregon because they're Alabama and their name brand. That's it. And the fans base and the support that generates, the money, the financial backing that would create for them. That is why they're doing this. They should all be completely ashamed of what they've done. Not just you, Gary Barta. You are the talking head of the committee, but all of them in that room. Because I want to be in the room where it happens, the room where it happens, the room where it happens. Down in the Hyatt, I believe is where they're at. I want to see each and every one of those members had to agree with that. What the hell are you doing? Enough. College football fans deserve better than this. And granted, it's probably going to work itself out anyway at the end of this week. If Ohio State beats Michigan State anyway, then you can move Michigan ahead of them. But on precedent, you can't do that. You can't. I don't understand it. It's so asinine. It's like, when does common sense needs to rule the day. But right now we all know that common sense is no longer common. That's the problem. I'm absolutely so perturbed with this. I'm sick and tired of watching it. We deserve better than this. Who are these people who are making these decisions? And how are they really making them? All right, it makes no sense. It's so asinine. And Gary Barta, you are a joke to the University of Iowa. In some other episode, I'll share the reasons why I believe that, and most Iowa folks, fans, alums, would agree with me on that. Absolute boob that he is. But, yeah, it gets back to this. I mean, let's say Ohio State wins out. They win the Big Ten. They absolutely are going to get a playoff bid. Let's say Oregon loses to Utah this week, but then wins the Pac-12 title. So they're sitting there with 2 losses. Are you going to keep Oregon out against Ohio State because they beat them head-to-head? Or are you going to take both Oregon and Ohio State and then give the shaft to Cincinnati? What's going to happen? This is just absolutely awful. Especially if Alabama wins, you can't take Georgia out. They're going to be in the playoff no matter what they do. It's so asinine. We deserve better, folks. We just do. Let me know if you agree, disagree with my commentary, my rant. I apologize. My heart's beating. But I just get so worked up because I love this sport so much, just like you do. We deserve better. And we are being absolutely robbed of our birthright to enjoy this great sport and celebrate everything that it is because of schmoes like this. That's why expansion cannot come any faster. Anyway. Okay. So here, my last segment. Sorry I went a little bit long today, but I have to say what needs to be said. And you know me from my previous episodes. I say what I mean, and I mean what I say. Boom, mic drop, moving on. All right. So now, based on the playoff rankings, how the games that I watch, scheduling, wins, losses, who have you played, here is my updated team power rankings entering Week 12. Each and every week, if this is your first time with me, I always give you guys my top 10 plus 2 as far as these are the teams that I believe are the best teams in the nation. So let's get right to it. Let's start off with number 1. And there was a little bit of movement this week in the top 10 following the action from the gridiron over the weekend during Week 11. Number 1, they've been camped out there, well-deserving. No movement here. You've got Georgia at number 1. Number 2, I've got Cincinnati. I reward somebody who's sitting there undefeated. Yes, I reward UTSA. I've been on their bandwagon all year, but I'm not going to put them in my top 10 simply because they're undefeated. But I believe Cincinnati is that good. I got them at number 2. No movement from last week. Number 3, moving up 1 spot. I've got the Oregon Ducks moving up 1 spot to number 3. Number 4, also moving up 1 spot from last week. I've got the Ohio State University. I've got the Buckeyes at number 4. Number 5, moving up 1 spot from last week. I've got the Alabama Crimson Tide sitting there in the 5 hole in good position. And yes, I've knocked Alabama for being as high as they've been in the playoff rankings. I did not believe that it was justified or warranted or earned. I mean, hell, you already played Mercer. And this past weekend, you played New Mexico State, who basically is an FCS program, even though they're an FBS independent. I mean, come on. Let's get a little softer here. But I did say they'd have every opportunity to play their way in and deserve it. And I'm sticking by that. And I got them at the 5 hole this week, up 1 spot. Number 6, moving up 1 spot from last week, I've got the Michigan State Spartans. Number 7, I've got up 1 spot as well, the Michigan Wolverines, behind Michigan State, as it should be, playoff committee. Number 8, up 1 spot, I've got the Oklahoma State Cowboys in the 8 hole. Number 9, my big mover going down this week, I've got in the 9 hole Oklahoma, down 6 spots after their loss at Baylor. Number 10, I've got up 1 spot, big win for them. Number 10, I've got up 1 spot, Wake Forest following their victory over NC State. That was my spotlight game over the weekend. Number 11 down one spot, not because they're deserving to drop, but I believe that win was a good win to get Wake Forest up. So bumping down one spot this week at number 11, I've got Notre Dame. And at number 12, getting back on my list following their big win, I've got the Ole Miss Rebels in the 12th spot. So that is my updated team power rankings heading in to week 12. And that, my friends, is all she wrote. That's today's episode. Tune in tomorrow. I would say by late afternoon, the week 12 preview episode will be up. Stay tuned. Tomorrow's my Pick'em segment. I'm going to share with you my key matchups, give you a little bit of insight and analysis on those, give you a little bit of analysis and insight on our black and golds. They're both in action this week. Missouri hosting Florida, Iowa hosting Illinois. So make sure to tune in tomorrow. I thank you for your time, your support. Please get the word out there. I appreciate any likes, any shares, any comments, subscriptions. Let's get it out there. But until tomorrow, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. And welcome. Thank you for being with me on the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog. See you then.